Hello, my fellow concerned friends, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for showing up and watching and supporting me every single time I post. It genuinely means the world to me. And if you are new here, hello, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. Out of all of these other videos you could have clicked on, you chose mine, and I really appreciate that. I hope that you can stick around and you can get something beneficial from my content today. Today's video is going to be a lot shorter and a lot less severe and urgent, which I think is going to be a break that we all really need, considering my last couple videos have been quite heavy and also quite lengthy. And the reason it's going to be so short and not very serious is because there's not a lot to go off of today, and honestly this is mainly just a discussion around foster children and how foster parents should be treating these foster children, which is a very important discussion to have because we have too many foster parents out here who have no respect for their foster children. Yesterday I was scrolling on my FYP, as one does, when I stumble across a video that has been reposted by somebody, and in the comments of the repost they said something along the lines of, "This lady needs to lose her foster care license ASAP." So instantly, obviously, I'm all ears. I am a former foster youth. I have had some terrible foster parents who to this day think I was the problem. So the video we're about to watch in just a second was posted by the now private TikTok user KP Mom Times 6, who is a foster parent, and she's a single foster parent. So a foster parent out there looking for some love. And hey, that is completely and totally fine. Just because you're a single foster parent does not mean you have to stay a single foster parent, okay? Just like if you're a single parent in general, does not mean you have to stay a single parent forever. However, when you're a foster parent, there are definitely some other things you have to consider when dating while housing children in your care that you wouldn't really have to consider when it's your own biological child. But a very common unfortunate truth is that many foster parents refuse to be trauma informed in general, let alone trauma informed on how they themselves should handle the dating life while housing traumatized foster children. Now, before we watch this video, I do just want to say KP Mom of 6 has gone private, so please don't go try to harass and say mean things, because she has posted 2 videos regarding this whole situation, which you're going to see in this video obviously, but she has received a ton of comments and even some people like making their own videos regarding this situation as well. So since she has gone private, I really hope that this has been a good reflection moment for her to actually listen to former foster youth's voices, as well as very well seasoned foster parents and social workers, etc. Not once in this video am I saying any one of these children in her care are in danger. I simply think that she brought up a really good discussion point when we're talking about caring for foster children in our home, because foster children are not like normal children. A foster child is a traumatized child. And yes, traumatized, estranged children do need and deserve specialized, different care compared to like a normal child.
Single foster and adopted mom of 6 kids. I'm going on a first date today to the zoo with my kids. We just got here. He's about to see how crazy I am because I dressed them all in like the same color shirt so we don't lose a kid. Also, we got here early so then he wouldn't have to see me pull up in my 12 passenger van, because that's embarrassing. Is he going to have to see it when we go get lunch from my car? Yeah, but that's a future me problem and I'm not going to worry about it.
Now, I already know there are some of you who are currently typing out, "Danielle, this is such a non-issue in comparison to other things that are going on right now that you could be talking about." And to that, I just want to say, number one, the voices of foster care and advocating for foster youth is not a small issue, no matter in your mind how small the problem is. This is their day-to-day life, and it's very confusing and traumatic, and I think it's really important that former foster youth, social workers, seasoned foster parents all speak up even about the most minimal problem. And secondly, this is my channel, please let me post what I want. So we have this single foster mom of 6 who decided it would be a great idea to go on a date to the zoo with her foster kids. Bring her foster kids with her to go on a date. Is that the worst thing we have ever heard of a foster parent doing on this channel or in general? No, but it is still a very important talking point because foster kids Feelings absolutely matter, especially when they're going through some of the most traumatic things in their life. They definitely don't need anything from a foster home that could be preventable adding to that. And not involving your foster kids in your dating life is absolutely one of those preventable things. And like I said, no, I am not the only person who finds this very strange. Let me read you guys some of the comments that were left, and you will see, and I will read some of the comments that I myself left. Honestly, if he's not freaked out by you, he's a red flag. She says, hey, so his kids came too. And I responded, not your kids. I definitely agree with the if he's not freaked out by you, it's a red flag thing, because it's not wrong to be open to dating somebody who is a foster parent and has foster kids. However, I think that if you are a reasonable person, you would much rather wait until you're in a much more committed, serious relationship with a foster parent before bringing yourself around those foster kids. Like, I don't know the placement of those foster kids, if it's temporary, like if they're working on reunification, if there's been guardianship or adoption done, I don't know. But with 6 foster kids and the amount that she said, I think it's safe to assume at least a couple of them are probably on track for reunification, or that's somewhere in the goal. And no, I don't think that it matters that he has his own kid. If anything, that should make him think even more so how important it is to not confuse children, especially children who have parents elsewhere and have gone through such trauma that they have to live with this stranger now. And also, like I said in my comment, those foster kids are not her kids. It's not like those are her biological kids and she's a single mom, therefore she has sole custody over those kids, or like, shares custody over those kids. Those are her kids. She can bring them around who she wants. But these aren't her kids to be doing with whatever she wants, to be introducing or exposing them to dating whoever you want and finding the right love. Like, that's not appropriate for a foster kid to have to experience, which is something she talks about in her reply video about how she sees nothing wrong with it, because what she's actually doing is teaching her kids that, they don't have to marry the first person that they date. They don't have to be committed to somebody. It's okay to date around and see what you like. And I don't disagree with any of those points. And I don't disagree that that is not a great thing to teach your children. I also think that that's a great thing, but it is not your place as a foster parent to make that a primary teaching moment in your foster kids' foster care journey. Like, that is definitely not something that should be, hey, by the way, foster kid, while you're going through everything else, I just really want to make it my primary goal that you notice my dating life so that you know how to date, or at least have a good example of dating. Someone else says, a date with foster kids? That sounds like an awfully bad idea. She says, I asked them if they're traumatized from going to the zoo, and they said no. So can we chill? And I responded, as a former foster kid, my foster parents also thought this because I didn't feel safe enough, to be honest. And that's true, not just for me, but for a lot of foster kids. A lot of foster kids, we feel so out of place in a home anyway. I think a lot of foster parents have like this false idea that just because they know that they're providing, a physically safe home and, relatively an emotionally stable and safe home, and these kids have the clothes that they need, they've got their own space, in their mind, these kids look now. They're presenting as normal kids, therefore they probably feel completely comfortable in my home. I call them kid, I tell other people, oh, that's my kid, I'm nice to them. They probably feel just as comfortable here as I feel with them being here. But even in some of the best homes that I've been in, I still never felt like I really belonged. I still felt scared to even give my opinion on where we're going out to eat. What movie should we go see? Hey, what do you want for Christmas? That always felt like a trick question. And so even in some of my most safe, comfortable homes, I still did not ever feel comfortable voicing my frustrations, things that were bothering me, because I was scared, is that going to get me kicked out? Will I be seen as ungrateful? Will I be seen as problematic? I was absolutely too scared to say something because, hey, I've got it pretty good. If I rock the boat, maybe it could be worse. You're not a good foster parent at all if your investigation into your foster children's feelings about the home dynamic is simply, hey, so did that scare you? Did I traumatize you? Did me taking you to the zoo on a play date with other kids traumatize you? No? Cool, great. You're not a good foster parent. And I was a foster kid who had a foster parent that started dating. So let me tell you guys a little bit about that. Now, my situation is a little bit different, just going off of assumptions. I don't know if any of these 6 kids are kinship placement, which if you don't know what kinship placement is, that's placement to like super close, like family in general, or like super close family friends. That would be like kinship placement. So during my journey of foster care, I ended up going from one foster home to kinship placement. My uncle, who I literally only met once in my life when I was a toddler, was able to take me in. He himself had been a former foster kid, so he really wanted to provide me that home that he never had, and my hopes were high. I'll never forget being in the car with him on our way to his house, and he played the song Home by Philip Phillips and said that that was his song to me, and my heart absolutely melted. I was so excited to have stability, to be living with somebody who would understand what it's like to be experiencing what I'm going through, and to really feel like I had somebody fully on my side because he gets it. And things with my uncle were great. Now, granted, the actual living situation was quite questionable. I didn't have a mattress. I slept in his son's room, and his sons would come over on the weekend, so then I would have to go sleep on the couch. And like I said, there was no mattress. So on the bunk beds, there was cardboard with some blankets that I would sleep on. Now, eventually, we did end up getting a mattress, but that's the situation we're looking at. He lived in like an old hunter's cabin in the woods that had been turned into like a little house. It was very small, it was very hot, there was very big spiders everywhere, but I felt comfortable. It felt like my home. And then he started dating, but you know what he did not do? Take me to the dates with him and his girlfriend. He did not involve me in his dates. Now, eventually the girlfriend did start coming over and hanging out a lot, and that's where things went downhill pretty quickly. You have to understand, I had just started feeling safe living there. I had just started feeling like this is my space. You also have to understand the only 2 people who were living in that home was me and my uncle. Also supposed to be the only 2 people living there legally in terms of who was supposed to be living in the same house as me, okay? And his sons, when his sons would come over on the weekends. So my routine when it would come to like me living in the house would be throughout the week, I slept in that bedroom, and then on the weekend, I had the couch. And although that doesn't sound like much, it doesn't sound very great, it was mine and it was safe for me. I knew that the couch would always be there, my stuff would be there. Like it felt like I had a place in that house. And now all of a sudden, he has a girlfriend coming over, and things are changing again after I just fell into a routine, after I just felt safe, after I just felt like I had my own things, my own space, my own bubble. And after she moved in, things started to go downhill pretty fast, and I'll spare you all of the details because number 1, we'd be here forever, and number 2, I don't think in regards to what we're talking about today, my exact story as to all of that is really pertinent, but I will just say this. I ended up moving out because I could not stand what felt like a competition between me and my uncle's girlfriend for my uncle's love, care, and attention. And I was tired of feeling like I was being pulled in multiple different directions by my uncle basically being like, I'm sorry things are like this, and then also being treated like that. I just had to get out of there, and I will not tell you guys how I was able to get out of there. That is a different story for a different day. But my point is that when you are a foster parent and you are bringing partners around these foster children, it can cause immense anxiety. It could cause triggers. It's extremely confusing, especially if that child is just now feeling like safe in an environment. It can feel like a genuine threat. It can genuinely feel like a perceived threat that this person might possibly invade a space that I have finally felt safe in. And then we have to start all the way back from ground zero. This person says, I'm a therapist and a single adoptive mom by international adoption. I would not take my kids with me on a date until I am seriously dating the guy. It's way too confusing for children who have experienced trauma and might have difficulty with forming attachments and bonds. See, I'm not just making things up, guys. Although to a lot of people I know this might seem like a very small deal, a very small thing in comparison to a lot of things, especially in comparison to a lot of things foster kids go through. But as a former foster youth, yes, even that little small feeling of betrayal, it hurts. Even that little small feeling of like, wow, I finally built my nest and now somebody's stomping on it, but it's not really mine. So what can I say? It's a nest that somebody let me borrow and I just made it mine. So let me pick up my trash bag and move on to the next house. Somebody else made this comment, and this is actually the comment she used to make a video response for the next video that we're about to watch together. That seems confusing to the kids to meet lots of potential boyfriends. What if they really like him, but the relationship doesn't work out? And that's another really important point that I have not even touched on yet, is what if a child does become really emotionally bonded and attached to somebody that you're dating, and this person is kind of like a rock in their life, and now all of a sudden you two aren't together anymore, and that child literally cannot talk to that adult anymore, period. It's not even like it's your biological child where it's like you can see, okay, you guys had a really close attachment, all right, fine. We might be broken up, but they were really good to you. Clearly, you really look up to them. Clearly, you really were leaning on them. So fine, I'll do what I can to like maintain this relationship because you're a human being who has formed a bond with somebody who, where in this scenario, has not harmed you. So that's not something that you can even provide as a foster parent. You can't even provide that or guarantee that. And again, that's not to say foster parents shouldn't date. Foster parents shouldn't have serious relationships, but you foster parents should very, 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 very carefully choose when you bring your partner around your foster kids. These are all things you need to consider if you are genuinely a trauma-informed foster parent who is genuinely providing foster care to children because you see a need and you have a desire to be that gap in that child's struggle so that you can be that bridge while they move on to that next stage of their life and heal.
Some of you guys are out here acting like we showed up to the zoo and I forced my kids to start calling him dad. My kids don't know that this was a first date. We're going to a zoo with one of our friends. My kids meet new friends of mine all the time. It's nothing new. If the relationship doesn't work out, it's fine. It's all right. Life goes on. My kids will be just fine. They're not going to get attached to a person that they meet for 4 hours at a zoo. But let's say as time goes on, we end up dating and I introduce him as my boyfriend to my kids. And then let's say that my kids really like him. And then let's say a few months later, our relationship ends. Am I going to stay with a man just because my kids like him? No.
I already got some things to say. Okay, her first point, you could kind of have an argument there. You could kind of have an argument there where it's like, okay, well, I didn't tell them that it's a date. So presumably in their mind, they're just thinking that I'm hanging out with my friend and I get to go on a play date. But kids are not dumb. Especially a traumatized foster kid, they're not dumb. Okay, kids pick up on vibes. They pick up on y'all's facial expressions to each other versus your facial expressions and your body mannerisms with your girlfriends or whoever else, okay? They're not dumb. Now, I'm not saying that I'm saying for sure every single one of her foster parents knew she was on a date. So I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that I'm not saying it's a small percentage likelihood that they had an idea it was a date. I'm saying it's a huge likelihood that they knew this was a date. And it doesn't matter that it was only 4 hours. That's still confusing and uncomfortable. And then also the whole factor of, well, if I do introduce him as my boyfriend and then say blah, blah, that also as a former foster kid would make me feel very uncomfortable if I thought I was just going on a play date with somebody and this guy was just your friend. And now all of a sudden I'm realizing, oh, I was involved in a date. That's what was going on. And also I would start to think to myself too, like, man, like I kind of feel like I was a little bit of a pawn in this because like I am the kid that is playing on the play date, but I didn't realize what the point of this play date really was. And then for her to sit there and essentially be like, what do you guys expect me to do? Stay in a relationship with somebody that's not working out simply because my foster kids like them? I'm not gonna do that. No, nobody is implying that. Nobody has said that. In fact, people have echoed quite the opposite. It's simple. Don't bring people you are casually dating around your foster kids because that is confusing. And also, it's not up to you to determine if a foster child can create a bond with somebody in 4 hours or not. We're talking about traumatized children here who have a disorganized way of thinking. You know, I have definitely as a kid got really attached to adults that I had only been around for a couple hours. And I understand that that's because I was traumatized and for whatever reason, I just really felt attached to them and I did not want to leave their side. And some of those adults, I don't even know their names. I don't even know what the situation was, but I do have those memories. So you don't get to decide that. And once again, I'm not saying that that's what happened, but we are talking about a foster parent here who is exposed to traumatized children all the time and will be in the future, who is sitting here saying to themselves, kids don't get attached to adults in 4 hours. Well, that's factually untrue. Is that common? Does that happen a lot? Probably not. I don't know. But it's wrong of you as a foster parent, someone who is supposed to be like one of the most kinds of trauma-informed parents ever, to say essentially that it's impossible and honestly laughable to think that a child could become attached to an adult in 4 hours. And also, you should care about that. That should be something that you're concerned with and something that you want to prevent from happening. You want to prevent any sort of heartbreak, betrayal, or confusion in a child who's already been heartbroken, betrayed, and confused so much.
And I hope that my daughter never thinks that she has to stay with a man because her family likes him or for any other reason. Kids that have grown up seeing unhealthy relationships and unhealthy dating their entire life are only going to learn healthy dating habits by seeing that and being exposed to that.
Wow. Wow. Once again, just factually not true. And I really don't like the language being used here. I don't want to be nitpicky on language, okay? But they only learn healthy dating habits by seeing it and being exposed to it, especially when they've only seen unhealthy dating. Okay, so what about single moms? What about single dads? Like I'm talking about single. Like there are plenty of single moms and single dads who are like, dude, I'm literally not dating. Not for anything that has to do with their kids, just because they are genuinely done with dating and relationships. What about them? Does that mean that every single one of their children are going to grow up and just have these really toxic, dysfunctional, unhealthy relationships? Because the only way a child, especially a child who has only seen unhealthy relationships, will have a healthy relationship is by constantly being exposed to that. No, children don't need to be exposed to an adult's dating life. It's completely fine for children to be exposed to, adults dating, but having them involved like in your dating life, bringing foster children around potential partners is not okay. Kids out and about are going to see people on dates. Kids out and about are going to see people kissing each other and holding hands and hugging. They're going to see all different kinds of couples. But those foster kids don't need to see that coming from you. That does not need to be a number one thing that you're trying to teach your foster kids. And honestly, I would almost argue that in a way, these behaviors are quite selfish as a foster parent. When one of your number one priorities is your love life and your happiness, while you have literally committed to giving stability to traumatized children in need, I think that's setting you up for failure from the get-go. You want to make sure that you are fully emotionally available and present for your children in general, but especially for foster children, like above and beyond. They come with a lot of different complex needs and trauma, which manifests in different behaviors that would be abnormal to the normal child, right? And whenever you're just sitting here having it such a priority and a goal to go on dates and date around and see who you like, what you like, because you're trying to find a spouse while you're also caring for traumatized children, you're putting yourself in a position of own personal heartbreak. And you're putting your focus on things that should not be in your primary focus when you have 6 foster kids. And again, that's not to say that foster parents don't deserve to date and don't deserve to find love. But when your dating and pursuit of finding love is getting in the way and interrupting your foster children's healing journey and simply journey to adulthood in general, I think you need to reconsider some things. And yes, in this situation, I think the desire to find love, the dating, is definitely getting in the way of fully pouring into these foster kids because of the language that she's using. Oh, they can't get attached in 4 hours. It's just very dismissive language. That can't happen. That won't happen. They're not traumatized. Well, I asked them and they told me they're not traumatized. Like, Get your priorities in order, girl. I think you need to go pick up a book on actually being a foster parent and the traumas that foster kids endure, and also how they might react to certain things and perceive certain things that is much different than how you would.
And so I am pretty open with my oldest kids about dating and what it looks like, and if a relationship ends, explaining that in an age-appropriate way, because I don't want my kids to think that they have to stay in a relationship for any reason. If somebody does something wrong, or you don't like them anymore, or for any reason, you can break up with them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they've met your kids. It doesn't matter if they've met your entire family. It doesn't matter, because you have to put yourself first. And you can't stay in a relationship with somebody that you're not happy with. And I want my kids to see that. Also, I want my daughter to see that the first guy that shows interest in us doesn't have to be the person that we like date or marry. We can go on dates with lots of different people and they can end up not working out. That's how dating works.
Yes, yes, yes. But when it comes to having kids, especially when it comes to having traumatized foster kids, no, you don't put yourself first. You never, as a parent, as a foster parent, an adopted parent, it does not matter. You never, as a parent, put yourself above those children when it comes to their development, their emotional safety, their physical safety. I completely agree with having age-appropriate conversations with especially older kids when it comes to dating, sex education. All of these things are extremely important to have conversations about. Not literally displaying to them, hey, watch me date, come with me on my dates so you can get tips and tricks. That's not how you go about it. You have conversations. But here's the thing, is no, when you have kids, when you have foster kids, you don't put yourself first when it comes to finding love, finding a relationship. You put those kids first. You have to, especially with foster kids, and again, throughout this video, I know I'm focusing on foster kids because that's what we're talking about, but just know that this also obviously applies to biological children as well. You have to put them first, even above yourself when it comes to this area of your life. And people don't like to say that, people don't like to hear that. And it feels uncomfortable to say because it's like, yes, you do deserve love. You do, and you do deserve to date around, but not if that's going to take away from your child's childhood. Especially a foster child who has probably already endured and seen so much confusing things. They need stability. And stability is not their foster mom having a new boyfriend every couple months. Stability is not going on a date with their foster mom and they can't say anything because the foster mom thinks that they have no idea, but they really know, and now they're just really uncomfortable and they have to keep going through this cycle. That is not an okay area to put yourself first in. Yes, absolutely teach your children to walk away from relationships and date around and do what you need to find yourself, put yourself first in that way, but you don't teach that by doing that and making them endure that and witness that over and over again. That's really traumatic. That's really confusing. And I hope she's also teaching these same principles to the assuming boys in the house, because she just keeps referring to daughter. When you choose to be a foster parent, because it is a choice, it's not like a lottery where somebody is selected and now they have to do this. It is a choice. When you choose to be a foster parent, you go through those classes and those trainings, you are choosing to put a child that you don't even know above everything else. You are choosing to take a child and essentially put it on a pedestal with a spotlight on it and say, I will help you be the best version of you that I can, no matter what. I am sacrificing my time. I am sacrificing a season of my life, maybe the rest of my life, so that I can give you a chance at success in the future. You can't do that when you're also putting yourself on that same pedestal, when you're also shining that same light on yourself, saying, I also deserve blah, 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 when you are signing up and choosing to take care of some of the most vulnerable children in our communities. And that is the problem. So many foster parents lose that vision of why they even started. That's to say that most of them even start with good intentions to begin with. There is no reason as a foster parent to expose your foster children to any more confusion when it comes to interpersonal relationships. And no, dating is not a confusing concept, but to a child's mind, a traumatized child's mind, oftentimes we're looking for that safe adult to lean into, and we are grasping at straws to find one. And whenever you're bringing, I'm dating and you're going to go on this date with me, a lot of times those children are looking at that person as a potential parent. The same way you're looking at that person as a potential partner, your foster children are looking at that person as a potential parent. Yes, and that can happen even in 4 hours. And foster parents need to care about that. Date. That's fine. Have fun. Foster parents deserve fun. Get a babysitter, put them in respite, go to a club, refill your own cup, but not at the expense of a child who has already endured so much trauma. But that's all I have for you guys today. Again, I know shorter video, a lot less serious, more of just a talking point discussion. I'm really interested to know your guys' thoughts down below. If you were a foster kid, did you also experience having a foster parent who dated a lot? How was that for you? Was it something that you didn't really care about, or was that something that was really irritating, angering, made you sad, confused, whatever it is? I'm really curious to know. And if you're a foster parent, I'm curious to know, what is your opinion on this? Are you a single foster parent? Do you date while having foster kids? And if you do, how do you do that? If you want to share that. And I want to hear from social workers too. Anybody who's involved with foster cares or foster kids, foster carers, I guess, but whatever, I don't know what I'm saying. If you are involved, I would like to know your guys' thoughts down below and what you think about this, because once again, is it the end of the world? No, but I think that any aspect and anything that we can do to help create a safer and more stable environment for kids in foster care, I think that it's worth talking about and worth exploring, and we can't find solutions or, help without these discussions. So I'm really excited to see what you guys have to say down below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.